Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Delegate Jackson, on behalf of House Bill 187. House Bill 187 allows for an increase in speed cameras on Maryland Route 210, which is located in Prince George's County. This body passed out a piece of legislation last year that allowed for one stationary camera which faced southbound on Route 210. That law went into effect July 1, 2018, and since then we have lost 5 citizens on that roadway, and multiple other persons were injured. So this year, the Prince George's County delegation passed out unanimously PG 305-19, which is House Bill 187, to increase the number of cameras up to 7, and those cameras could be placed in multiple locations on Route 210. I have with me today some gentlemen, a few gentlemen who are will be commenting or speaking on this matter. I think the Highway Administration is here as well for technical questions. So we're asking for a favorable report. I will pass the microphone on to former Chief of Police, Prince George's County, now Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Public Safety, Mark McGaugh.
Thank you, Delegate. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Mark McGaugh. As you heard, I am the Deputy CAO for Public Safety in Prince George's County. I am the former police chief. I spent 32 years on the police department, the last 5 being the chief of police. And I'm here representing County Executive Alsobrooks, who strongly supports House Bill 187, which will allow speed camera placement at additional locations beyond the single intersection currently allowed. For many years, this stretch of roadway has served as a primary artery for motorists to access the D.C. metropolitan area. Thousands, tens of thousands of motorists use this roadway daily to travel in and around the capital region. Unfortunately, this roadway has also contributed to more than 60 tragic deaths in the last 10 years. According to Prince George's County law enforcement data since 2008, the portion of Indian Head Highway, Maryland Route 210, which falls inside Prince George's County borders, has seen 54 fatal collisions, 17 of which have involved pedestrians. Excessive speed was found to be a contributing factor in many of these. Prince George's County Police Department, and the Major will speak to this even more, has taken huge steps in enforcement over the last 2 years on Route 210. In 2017, the police department initiated more than 5,600 traffic stops and wrote 8,000 citations. In 2018, traffic stops on Maryland Route 210 increased to 6,400, and more than 10,000 citations were issued. Despite the best efforts of the County Police Department and their increased enforcement, non-fatal accidents continue to rise each year, with more than 350 reported in 2018. AAA regularly calls Indian Head Highway Route 210 one of the most dangerous roadways in the Washington region. I'm done.
If you want to wrap up.
Okay, I'll just wrap up. This bill is very, very important to Ms. Alsobrooks, and we certainly support this wholeheartedly and ask for your favorable report.
Mr. Chair, honorable committee members, my name is Major Bill Alexander. I'm from the Prince George's County Police Department. I'm here on behalf of Chief Stawinski in strong support of HB 187. As we were preparing for this bill, I vividly recalled the very tragic accident involving some drag racers on 210 just 11 years ago, in which some drag racers slammed into a crowd of onlookers and killed 8 people. And unfortunately, 210 continues to be the site of many tragedies, most recently the one in December, which left 3 young children dead. Under the leadership of then Chief McGaugh and now Chief Stawinski, violent crime in Prince George's County has dropped more than 50%. And I say that not just to heap praise on my former boss who's sitting here today, but also to give you some context for how it is that we as an organization have changed. With the reduction in violent crime, we've freed up some resources to focus on other areas of law enforcement, one of those being traffic safety. And we have invested a lot on Maryland 210. As Mr. McGaugh said, we've made thousands of traffic stops and issued tens of thousands of citations, including tens of thousands of man hours in the 210 area. But we really have saturated our ability to continue enforcement on 210. We have a lot of experience with speed cameras and being able to place them in various locations in the county. And time and again, we see that these speed cameras do, in fact, influence driver behavior. Really, really influence driver behavior. And the single camera that's on 210 now is not in and of itself assisting us. So we are strongly, strongly asking this committee to favorably respond to this report to give us an additional tool or set of tools to influence driver behavior. If I'm saying anything today, I'm saying we believe very, very strongly that these speed cameras have the ability to not just reduce speed, but change driver behavior in a way which will save lives. Please respond favorably. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I might, as the bill reads, this will sunset on September 30th, 2023, where a report will be initiated. Again, we knew that this was a stretch a year ago. This body felt it necessary to pass a bill. We're talking a state highway. We're talking county enforcement. Everybody's trying to work on their state as well as local agencies, and we strongly urge a favorable report. We'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Delegate. We do have a few questions. Delegate Lafferty.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Delegate, and I do remember the prior testimony about the dangers on this road. So who will pay for the cameras?
The cameras actually pay for themselves.
So who makes the initial payment for the cameras?
For the initial payments, the fiscal notes.
Yeah, I may not have gotten all the way through that, Delegate. Is the county purchasing the cameras or leasing them?
The county.
We currently have a red light camera program and a speed camera program that is run through the county police department. And the delegate was right. We don't actually purchase this equipment. We have a contract lease with a company.
Right.
They bring the equipment. Whatever's paid in fines, they get the money back off of that. So it's a program that's currently running in the county.
Okay. When we passed the legislation previously, we recognized this was sort of precedential because
Yes.
Outside of work zones and school zones, we've not authorized these. Are there standard or criteria that Route 210 has sort of become sort of demonstrative of that we could use if other parts of the state said we need to have the authority for cameras outside of work zones and schools? I mean, number of citations, deaths, accidents. I mean, there's any standard that emerges from the overview of the work that you all have been doing to reduce the harm? So that if someone in Carroll County said we need to have speed cameras on Route 140, and we can say, well, this is the standard that we set with Route 210.
Well, I believe that the number of fatalities and the number of injuries that occurred on that roadway caused the members of that particular district to bring it to the local delegation, as well as some community folks that I believe are going to be testifying, or you have written testimony from, to sound the alarm. Again, that's a state highway, and we're talking all the local police agencies in the county, as well as the state police, have done everything that they can to try to curtail this. And that roadway itself has it's a long stretch of highway. Obviously, it's a dark highway, and there's a lot of space between. A lot of distance between the traffic lights there. So I think because of the injuries to the citizens there, as well as continued development along those roadways, traffic is constantly increasing. It's one of the top traffic impediment highways that we have in Southern Maryland.
And Mr. Chairman, even though Mr. Slater is not on the panel, since he's here for technical information, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Good to see you, Mr. Slater.
Thank you.
Are there elements of the road that could be altered, whether it's lighting, road reconfiguration, narrowing of lanes, anything else that State Highway could undertake to reduce the risks and harm that unfortunately continue to plague the citizens of Prince George's County?
We are continuing to work with our partners, both on the law enforcement side, but also in the local transportation side, and trying to find ways that we can address some of the challenges. What it comes down to is we probably have about $115 to $120 million in the corridor today, trying to invest in that interchange at Kirby Hill. We're also investing in some lighting issues and some other strategies there. It's just a matter of having enough resources to continue to go all the way down there. In the meantime, what we're seeing here is a very well-documented history of speeding and aggressive driving and a whole host of issues.
Then let me ask you the question I posed to the other gentleman is, are there, if other parts of the state similarly felt that they had dangerous stretches of roadway or intersections where they wanted the state to authorize cameras, are there emerging data points from this experience from 210 that are replicable in other parts of the state?
I think that's a really challenging question to kind of work through, because every corridor is somewhat unique. Is it an urban corridor? Is it a corridor that's kind of wide open? And are there speeding issues? Are there other challenges? I think it'd be really challenging to look at it purely from a data perspective without understanding the unique characteristics of each corridor and understanding those.
And then, so if you made any kind of other analysis beyond the data points then about what might make that corridor safer? I mean, what, in the planning and work that you've been doing in 210, I mean, is there something that, even if it's preliminarily, looks like it can be done to alter what's going on other than just putting in cameras?
So we have a plan that's been on the books for quite some time that really focuses on a lot of the friction points and a lot of the crash points along that corridor, where we have lights, a lot of rear end crashes, those types of things, side swipes. But we also, the plan is to really put grade separated interchanges in where all those lights are today. And there's a resource cost that comes with that. So as you reduce those friction points, we want to figure out what the best way we can make that corridor safe today.
Thank you.
And Delegate, if I might add, that's why we put in the sunset date of 2023 while working with the department on, solutions to the challenges on Route 210. We want to kind of stop the issues that we're having now while the Department of Transportation is coming up with their plans or implementing their plans. So.
Thank you very much.
All right, next question goes to Delegate Castle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my colleague asked the question, but I'm a little slow, so I have to dumb it down a bit. Mr. Slater, I see no written, what I'm trying to figure out is, are you guys okay with the expansion of this pilot program?
So we viewed this bill and this program as really a local law enforcement matter. So we didn't take a position either way on this bill, but we wanted to be here to support anything that would help improve the safety on our system.
So in support of expansion of this pilot program would fall under that?
We viewed that as a real, just a local law enforcement matter, but from a statistical standpoint, I can give you a little bit of statistics associated with the camera that we have today in our work zone.
That'd be very helpful.
So when you look at the camera, we have one at the 210 and Kirby Hill interchange today. The first month of the northbound deployment was in December of 2017. We've had a steady decline. The first month, we had 883 citations. Then it went down to 308 a year later. And today we have about a 0.5% speed violation through that intersection.
Do you have any correlating data on accidents?
Particularly at that location?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is people will get smarter and stop speeding, but can I assume then obviously there's there's going to be a improvement or a reduction in the number of accidents?
Sure, certainly and there are a number of factors to crashes and accidents, and speed differential is really the deadly factor when it comes to crashes and accidents. So we want to, anything we can do to slow that traffic down. Now, the camera that we have out there today is focused on the work zone side and the different conditions that you encounter in an active work zone. But it has definitely helped slow down the traffic and reduce the crashes at that location.
Thank you very much. And if I may, Chair, just one quick question. Delegate?
Yes.
These signs, it's posted that there's a
Yes.
speed camera there.
It includes that, but as we all know, once you know where the camera is, you do your thing until you get to that area, and the 7 will allow us to be mobile.
Thank you.
Delegate Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all. This was kind of a test case in more than one scenario because we also required a real-time posting of the speed with this camera. Can you tell me how that worked, or was there any difficulty in placing that real-time posting of the speed, and whether that's also potentially helped in slowing traffic?
We find that the real-time speed monitor is partially effective, but really once a community recognizes that a camera is in a location, collectively, the mindset changes. Almost everyone becomes aware that the camera is there. So part of it is being visible and showing the speed, but part of it is also just the general knowledge of people being aware that there's a camera there. So the single camera that's there now has proven effective, but the problem is that everyone in the community there knows that there is just a single camera on 210. What we're asking for is obviously the ability to move that camera or add additional cameras to space out the placements, and also not have people be necessarily aware in real time where the camera is. So we can change the behavior of driving across the entire stretch of 210, not just in the one single location where it is now.
And the real-time posting of the speed device, do you recall how much that cost to place that?
I do not have an exact figure, but as Mr. McGaugh said, that's it's the company that we contract through. We're not paying out any money for.
So they also provided it?
Yes.
Are you still seeing a net revenue from that camera?
Absolutely. The county as well as the state. The state portion goes to the criminal injury compensation fund, and then the county retrieves dollars as well. That grows significantly. And will continue.
And Mr. Slater, are you all still using the real-time posting of speed in your work zones?
We do, and let me be clear that our goal is to issue no tickets at all. Our goal is to have people not speed.
In the case of the bridge project in Washington County, though, I think the longer you leave it there, the more you'll probably pay for that project, from what I've read in the paper. Thank you.
Okay, next question goes to Delegate Boyce. Not there. Okay, so back. I didn't mean that. She's probably testifying on a bill in another committee. Delegate Lehman.
Thank you. And thank you, Major Alexander and Mr. McGaugh. It's good to see you both here. So I'm well aware of how deadly 210 is, but I'm curious about, I've read and reread the bill, and I think the number of new cameras allowed under this legislation, I have heard, but it is not in here directly, would be 7 would be permitted, and I think it's a 13-mile stretch. Is that accurate? And if that's true, what is the justification besides the fatalities? And I know that's serious, and we want to do everything we can to address that. But what is the justification for going, if that's the case, for going from 1 camera to 7? And are those going to be then essentially every 2 miles of this highway, there's going to be a speed camera?
Well, Delegate Lehman, as we discussed in subcommittee as well as in the delegation, the key to the up to 7 additional cameras means that they could be moved to different locations. We don't want folks to get understand exactly where the cameras are, because that is a long stretch of highway. So this gives the enforcement units an opportunity to move those cameras around to kind of curtail that traffic issue until we can get to the point where our highway partners can figure out what we need to do there. And so that was the mindset when the bill was introduced this year. The one camera that we have existing now is only southbound. It's southbound, so it didn't take long for folks to realize that it wasn't northbound.
Okay, but where is the up to 7 language? And I just want to say, I think the bulk of this conversation took place in the Law Enforcement Committee. So I'm not, asking questions that I had an opportunity to ask
Yes,
prior to this. I just want people to realize that. I had wondered about that before. I don't see anything in here that refers to 7. There are, the original intersection that was written into last year's law at Old Fort Road is struck, and then after that, there are just generic references to an intersection on 210 or Indian Head Highway. I even tried to count. I thought, well, maybe they broke out an intersection, no, that's only about 3 times. There's never the number 7 anywhere that I can see in here.
No, actually, when the bill passed out of the Prince George's delegation, it passed out with an amendment for up to 7.
Okay, and so then I go back to, what is the justification? Why 7? What is, why 7 and not 3 or 4?
I'm not sure. I'm here on behalf of the Prince George's delegation as the chair. The sponsor of the bill, Delegate Valderrama, is in another hearing. I'm not really sure why the number was.
But there must be some relevance to that number. Can either Mr. McGaugh or Major Alexander address that? And then could you also address relative to intersections? How do you see these cameras working at all these intersections on this road?
In the amendment, yeah, it was up to 7. And when we talk about this roadway, and I know you're familiar with it, it's about 13 miles north and southbound. Some parts it's four lanes. It goes down to 3. So it's a long roadway, and what we're trying to do is affect the behavior across the entire length of that roadway. 7, and I'm not sure exactly why the 7 was chosen, but what it allows us to do is to work both sides of the roadway at different locations and move those pieces of equipment so that we change the culture on that roadway. So right now, when you hit 210 at the county line, you can run 90, 100 miles an hour up that roadway. And you've got several intersections and that's where we've had a lot of our issues, is those intersections. People aren't recognizing that they need to slow down and that type of thing. The pedestrians, it goes from a flat out raceway to almost an urban setting with the apartments and everything else as you move towards the Capitol Beltway. It's a very difficult roadway to manage. There's a lot of engineering, and that's really the core of how we finish this problem or get rid of this problem, is the engineering. And thank you for SHA to everything they've done for us, but that takes time. And like the delegate asked, what we want to do with this is just a short period of time so we can manage the speed until the roadway itself will manage its own speed.
Right.
But exactly why 7, I don't know where that number came from.
That would be helpful to know. My last question for State Highway is, what other traffic calming measures are there planned for this roadway? I just don't think speed cameras can address everything in any setting, but even on this road in particular.
We've been doing a number of things up and down that corridor, from signing to kind of the digital signs that give you the speed awareness, those types of things. Anything that we can do to calm the traffic, particularly focusing on the intersections. That's where we've had a majority of the challenges. But I think the nature of that corridor, it just feels very wide open in certain sections. So people start to feel comfortable driving that fast. And, some of the challenges that we've seen, for instance, we've seen a much higher average of crashes at night. So making sure we have additional lighting up and down that corridor. We have some lighting challenges across the state today, and we're trying to do some things down on 210 right now to provide some additional lighting. And that's not only for vehicular safety, but that's also for some of the areas that are seeing some pedestrian traffic.
Thank you.
Delegate Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Delegate, a couple quick questions for you. And Mr. Slater just made a comment about the accidents at night. Are most of the accidents, serious accidents you see there, do they tend to be on off-peak hours as opposed to peak out traffic hours?
They don't really discriminate down there.
They
There's so much
just
traffic, just so much traffic flowing. It's Prince George's County traffic. It's Southern Maryland traffic that use 210 to get to the district or to up into Prince George's County. So we're dealing with St. Mary's County, Calvert County, Charles County traffic, as well as Prince George's County traffic.
And that was going to be my next
And Northern
question.
Virginia, I'm sorry, because they come across the bridge.
To get to Northern Virginia.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you say that being probably one of the few people in the room, besides maybe a couple other, I can remember when the traffic on that road was like nil. There wasn't hardly any traffic there at all.
Marshall Hall Davis.
But with the increase in all the developments and things like that, is that road, has it reached its capacity? I mean, this is for SHA, I guess. Is SHA looking at it as its capacity's been reached? And
So I don't have the volume capacity ratio here in front of me, but I can tell you that that roadway is an arterial roadway carrying about 75,000 cars a day, which is a significant amount of traffic. On top of that, the congestion challenges up and down that corridor have really increased. So what happens is when you get that amount of traffic and that amount of congestion, especially in the peak, people tend to do some ill-advised things to get around it.
Well, one last question. Don't you think that I'm being very smart when I try to stay away from that road at certain times of the day and use the back roads to get to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge?
Yes, we do, Delegate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Delegate Huey.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. We were here last year to get this bill passed the first time. It set a precedent, and there were a lot of concerns about making sure it was very narrowly targeted. This bill widens it out considerably, and there's a concern about, because the state law and the policy is that these cameras are supposed to be labeled. People are supposed to know where they are. They have to. This is a school zone. It's right. There has to be a sign there on the work zones. The sign has to be there and prominent, so that people. We're not trying to trap people, and that's the opposite of what the goal of the whole statewide program is. So when you talk about trying to move cameras around and keep people guessing about where they are, that goes against the state policy.
Let me say this, Delegate, I appreciate that. The bill specifically states that even with the enhanced number of cameras, the signage is still necessary for those locations. So you move the cameras around. Today, I may remember that there's a camera at Old Fort Foot Road, and then tomorrow I may see another sign that is somewhere else, and that along that entire 13-mile stretch will play in my mind, changes my attitude to say, you know what, there's probably cameras all over 210. Maybe I need to drive the speed limit on 210. So signage accompanies the signs wherever they go. So they're not hidden cameras. There are cameras with the signage does follow them.
All right, and so I think that's just something that when we talked about creating this policy statewide, it was really, we wanted to be clear that we didn't want to, we want to change behavior.
Yes.
But we did, and it does do that. And in the school zones, it's worked very well. And in the work zones, it's worked very well. And part of that is because the signs are there all the time, and the cameras are there all the time. And people know that if they speed through there, they're likely to get a ticket. And so I think, we need to be cautious about moving things around like that. We'll talk about it in subcommittee, but I have a concern about that.
Yes, I think it's a legitimate concern, but I think along with the enforcement agencies and the contractor, they make assessments with these matters. And if you have mobile cameras, those cameras are moved only when necessary if the assessment says that you need to move the cameras. So there's input, and it's with forethought. It's not just done.
If I might just add,
Sure.
I may have misspoken earlier. Our intention is not to play a gotcha game with the public, and when we talk about moving cameras, we're certainly not talking about moving them on some sort of daily or weekly basis. We would leave them there for some period of time. And we still follow the normal protocol of publicly notifying, usually via newspaper, where a camera is going to be placed. And our intention, I believe, would be to leave the cameras there for, at a minimum, for a few months. But what we want the public, at least in this community, to sort of perceive is that broadly we're monitoring Maryland 210 in ways that we haven't previously, and hopefully in ways that will change driver behavior. Certainly it's not we would be thrilled if we got 0 citations within a few months. We just don't want people to, in their mindset, to be, the camera is at Old Ford and 210 and that's the only place I need to slow down. We just need to broaden the public's perception about, hey, the police department now is really monitoring 210 in a much broader way, not as a gotcha game, but they do have the ability to move these, and we would publicize it. And again, our hope is 0 citations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies if this has already been discussed, but I just want to make sure I understand. You have real-time monitors right next to the cameras, is that correct? Yes? Okay, so when you move the cameras, will you also be moving the real-time monitors with them?
I can speak to the ones that we use in our work zones, where we have these monitors, kind of a speed awareness type of monitor. They're on trailers, so we like people to see them before they even encounter where the work zone camera would be.
Right, that's in general, but I'm just wondering, when you move these cameras, will the real-time monitors move with them?
The bill calls that those displays as well as the signs accompany the cameras, yes.
Okay. Great. And then my second question is, we're very well aware of speed cameras in Montgomery County. I haven't heard, though, of the mobile ones. Is this done anywhere else in the state?
Well, first of all, this is a unique circumstance, and I'll let the highway safety speak to this, but again, this is the first state highway that cameras have been placed on. And so we asked this body to grant us that last year. And so the residual effect of that caused us to come back and say, you know what, we have a bigger problem, and we need more help.
Let me add, I don't want to speak to the vendor that the county would be using, but by nature, the work zone ones are mobile. So they're, people get to know where those little white Jeeps are, and they're hooked up to the trucks. But yes, by nature, they're mobile.
We have upwards of 70 cameras. They're all mobile in the sense of they're on a trailer, so you can physically move them. In fact, I think the camera at Old Ford and 210 now is what we would call a mobile camera. It's just stationary.
Correct, but it's stationary.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, there appear to be no further questions. Thank you very much. I see also Ron Weiss and Sarah Cavett didn't come up. But is Gloria Constant around?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe they are. Okay. You didn't call them up? Oh, okay. All right. Well, Ron Weiss, Sarah Cavett, Gloria Constant.
This new Sarah.
Okay. Ron Weiss and Gloria Constant. Both signed in favor.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'm Ron Weiss. I'm a resident of Prince George's County. I live near Indian Head Highway, and my family and I are frequent users of 210. It's our main street. I thank you very much for passing HB 175 last year. It broke new ground in permitting a speed camera on 210. It's the only speed camera in the state on a high-speed highway not in a school zone or a work zone. You passed that bill to help us reduce the loss of life on what is unfortunately known as the highway of death and the most dangerous road in the area. This year, HB 187 improves on last year's legislation by removing restrictions that limit the effectiveness of the speed camera. The restriction to a traffic light controlled intersection has proven that location where vehicles are at 0 miles an hour for a portion of the traffic cycle is catching only a fraction of speeders caught by the work zone camera just 1 mile north of the intersection. Since the speed camera started operating, as has been previously mentioned, we've had four people killed. We had the 3 children in December, and just February we had Mr. Juan Castillo died as a passenger in the southbound lane, which is 7 miles south of where the camera is. So the fixed speed camera, where it is, couldn't have affected either of those tragedies. Our sad history is that the inordinate number of serious and fatal crashes on 210 have happened along the entire 13-mile length of the highway, and both north and southbound. A single speed camera just isn't going to make a big difference. This bill will free our police to use speed cameras where, based on crash data and radar speed measurements, they know that cameras would be most effective in slowing speeders. And I appreciate your time, and I ask you to support HB 187. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Constant.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Gloria Constant, and I reside in Accokeek, Maryland, which is like the furthest end of Indian Head Highway. I am also the past president of and a current member of the Police District 7 Citizens Advisory Council, and I support HB 187. I wish to share with you my experience of driving on Indian Head Highway. When I first moved to Fort Washington, Maryland, I was rear-ended while stopped at a red light by a drunk driver. I was the passenger in that vehicle that was completely totaled. 3 years ago, while driving my brand new vehicle and stopped at a red light, I was rear-ended by a distracted driver. 2 years ago, a good friend of mine was rear-ended by a drunk driver that resulted in her having to have back surgery. And just last year, my boyfriend was stopped at a red light and was rear-ended by a distracted driver operating a commercial vehicle that resulted in him having hip replacement. On a daily basis, while driving on Indian Head Highway, it's like the Wild Wild West. Nobody regards the law. It's the norm to experience excessive speeding, vehicles weaving in and out, distracted drivers, and worst of all, drivers running red lights. So it was no surprise when the Citizens Advisory Council asked the police commander at District 7 to increase police presence on Indian Head Highway. That resulted in more than 10,000 citations in just a few months. It is a very sad day that we need to take extra precautionary measures to enforce public safety and make drivers obey the law. We need cameras, not only speed cameras, but in my opinion, some red light cameras. I hope you approve this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, Ms. Constant, those distracted drivers, were any of them texting? Do you know what the distraction was? I'm curious.
I really don't know. All I know is that when I got out of my car, I said, "Why did you do this?" She's like, "I don't know."
Yeah, that sounds like distraction to me. Delegate Casserly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A quick question for the delegate. I apologize. There are some areas of the road where I've been told by law enforcement that it's just not safe for them to sit and issue citations. Is that the situation on this stretch of road? I mean, and listening to this testimony makes it sound like there's no law enforcement at all on this road. Is that because it wouldn't be safe to have speed traps on this area?
Yeah, I think it's dangerous for law enforcement anyway when you're on the side of the road issuing citations. The amount of traffic on 210, for 5 years I lived in Accokeek, the first light in Accokeek, and my wife commuted to D.C. every day. So I think Mr. Slater mentioned over 75,000 cars are on that road daily. And so that makes it very dangerous for anyone on the side of the road. You have a flat tire, you're on the side of the road. That makes it dangerous. It's dangerous for a law enforcement officer as well. But again, it's a state highway. So the local law enforcement agencies are trying to help curtail this issue, as well as the state police trying to do what they can do on the state highways. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Delegate Harrison.
Thank you, and I apologize that I wasn't here at the beginning of the presentation, but we were just in this in this particular panel, we were talking about drunk drivers and distracted drivers, but the purpose of this bill has really to deal with speed. And so isn't it true that while the average speed is 55 miles an hour, It seems as though, I shouldn't say it seems as though, I think it's recorded that it's not unusual for cars to drive an average of 78 miles per hour or speeds up to 90 miles per hour on this stretch of road. Is that correct?
All too often, yes, ma'am.
And and that's probably, is that primarily because it's pretty much a straight?
Yes.
It's straight, so it makes it a kind of speedway-ish like, and then after a while, the distance between lights are increased, so that you have more time to pick up speed.
Yes,
Is
absolutely.
that correct? Okay, and while we talked about those particular issues, but we have speeding-related fatalities at 29% of all of the issues that occur on that deaths. 29% of all motor vehicle deaths in 2017 were speed-related.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no further questions for this panel, and that concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 187. Thank you very much.